Good evening. I am Marcy Glass. I'm the pastor and head of staff here at Calvary, and I just wanted to welcome you to our space and we're grateful to be able to offer events like this and to host community groups in our space. Calvary has been here we've been here since 1904, but we've been in the city since 1854, and so we really care that the city is, is engaged and involved, and we really want to be involved in supporting what happens here in the city. So welcome to our space, and we hope you feel like this is your home too. Restrooms, if you need them, are if you go out that door and to the right, they're down that hallway about halfway down. Sadly, those were not built at the beginning when the building was built, and so they weren't quite maybe as up close and personal as it would have been helpful to have. But we are glad that you are here, and we're glad that you're in our space. So have a good night, and thank you both to the candidates for being here. Mm-hmm.
Should I take this out?
Yeah.
Good evening and welcome to the candidate forum for the 2026 San Francisco Board of Supervisors District 2 election. I'm Michelle Moritz, Vice President of Voter Services for the League of Women Voters of San Francisco, which is a nonpartisan political nonprofit encouraging informed and active participation in government. The League never supports or opposes candidates or political parties. However, after thorough study, we often take a stand on issues and ballot measures. The League is committed to providing the resources that voters need to exercise the most fundamental right of our democracy, voting. Please visit our website at lwvsf.org, and you'll find many voter resources. We want to thank Calvary Presbyterian Church for the use of this facility and the ACLU NorCal for their support as well. We also want to acknowledge that we're on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, the original inhabitants of San Francisco, and we recognize that we all benefit from living on their homeland. So audience, if your friends and family couldn't be here tonight, the forum is being live streamed right now, and actually a lot of people signed up to watch it tonight live. So hello everyone out there. It's being live streamed on SF.gov TV's YouTube and cable channels and on LWVSF's YouTube. The forum's being recorded and will be on our website, so you can watch it later or you can invite your friends to do so, and also on the mentioned YouTube channels. We're very grateful to our partners at SF.gov TV who do a fantastic job recording and live streaming these nonpartisan forums all over San Francisco. We team up with them at every election. And now I'm pleased to introduce our moderator for tonight, Lila LaHood. Lila is the co-founder and executive director of the San Francisco Public Press. She is also a member of San Francisco's Sunshine Ordinance Task Force and a member of the board of directors of the Northern California chapter of the Society of Professional Journalists.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm thrilled that so many San Franciscans are joining us here to hear from the candidates for the 2026 District 2 Board of Supervisors election. Candidates, welcome, and thank you for participating. We look forward to hearing your views on key issues affecting District 2 and our city. First, I want to let our audience know some important forum rules. For those watching online, you're in listen-only mode. That means that Q&A and chat features are turned off. For those in the room with us, please be respectful and refrain from making noise. No booing, and please hold your applause until the end. This helps ensure that everyone in the room and watching online can hear the candidates' vision for the future of District 2 and San Francisco. It also makes the video's closed captions and audio clear for those viewing remotely or watching the recording. Here are the rules for the forum. Candidates, you will have 2 minutes to make opening and closing statements. Opening statements will be in alphabetical order by first name. Closing statements will be in reverse alphabetical order by first name. Each of you will have the opportunity to answer the same questions. I'll rotate the order in which you answer them. You'll have 2 minutes for each response. The questions I will ask were selected from those submitted in advance by residents and organizations in the district. A league member will provide you with a visual indication of how much time you have left. Candidates, do you see the timekeeper in the front row? Okay. Your responses to questions should be about the issues or policy. Please be respectful. Do not personally attack others. Don't direct your responses to the other candidate. And you don't need to mention other candidates' names. This is a forum, not a debate. If you have a rebuttal, you don't get extra time. Instead, please fit the rebuttal into your time responding to another question or into your closing statement. Voters, you have important decisions to make for the June 2nd election. Tonight's forum is a great opportunity to learn about the candidates before you vote. So let's begin. We'll start with opening statements. We'll go in alphabetical order by first name. So Lori Brooke, then Stephen Sherrill. In your opening statement, please introduce yourself and share why you're running for District 2 Supervisor. Please stay within the 2-minute limit. Lori, you may start.
Well, thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting this together. Thank you to those who made it in this horrible weather. And thank you to those in TV land who are dry and at home. I'd like to begin by, if you don't know, I'm Lori Brooke, and I'm running for District 2 Supervisor. I bring years of experience, I have an independent voice, and I have deep, deep roots in the community. Just to give you a little background about myself, so my family has been here for generations. My grandfather, my father, and my brother are all, well, my grandfather has passed, but are local 38 union members. My nephew is entering the police academy. My grandmother worked for City Hall for 30 years, and I've been a civic activist for now 27 years. And I got involved when a neighbor came by my home to talk about a cell tower that was being placed on Lombard near a bunch of people's homes. And through the effort of meeting my neighbors, we actually ultimately prevailed in getting Verizon to move it to a safer location. And that was the moment I realized how neighborhood activism can turn into results, and you can take on powerful interests and win. And that began my journey in being a neighborhood leader. I joined the Cow Hollow Association, for which I've been the president for 19 years, and I've been dealing with every kind of quality of life issue you can think of: parking, traffic, zoning, neighborhood beautification, graffiti, disaster preparedness. That is what we do all the time with the Cow Hollow Association. I also co-founded Rescue SF and Neighborhoods United SF, and those organizations were formed to deal with both our homelessness crisis and our housing challenges. So I am running because I feel that the residents need their voice in City Hall. Someone who has been out on the streets at the grassroots level for the last 27 years. I am you. I know how you feel. I know what you want to see of your city. And I'm prepared now to go on the inside and be your voice. So I hope tonight I will have earned your vote. Thank you.
Stephen, go ahead.
Well, good evening, everyone here and at home, but especially to those of you here who are braver than those at home. No, you're great too. But in all seriousness, thank you to the League of Women Voters, to the ACLU, Lila, SF Gov TV. Thank you for having us all here tonight. Tonight is about democracy, and with you, it does not work. My name is Stephen Sherrill, and I'm incredibly proud to be your District 2 Supervisor. I live in Presidio Heights, where my wife Sarah and I are raising our 2 young children, and I love this job. I love being the District 2 Supervisor because every day I get to work on the challenges that families face here in San Francisco, to make it easier to start here, to grow here, and to stay here across generations. And over the past 16 months, I've been laser focused on public safety. Public safety is my top priority. That means foot patrols on Chestnut, ambassadors in Cow Hollow. That means pedestrian safety. That means funding for victims' rights, for domestic violence prevention. And it definitely means a fully staffed police department. We've been focused on the cost of living. That's about housing. That's about transit. That's about great public schools. And it is definitely about childcare. And I am proud to be championing an expansion of the daycare subsidies to families making $312,000 a year. But it's also about you. It's about the residents, and that's why I've centered my office on constituent services, because when you call, you deserve an answer. Whether it's about illegal drug activity in front of your house or a cracked sidewalk, when you call, you deserve an answer. And so for me, this is about our families. This is about keep San Francisco moving forward, keeping the momentum we are seeing over the past year, because we are not done yet. We are not done moving San Francisco to the spot where we are the #1 choice for families in America. And so tonight, I'm very proud to be able to be here with all of you, and I'm very much looking forward to this conversation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you both for your opening statements. You'll have up to 2 minutes to answer the following questions. This time, we'll start with Stephen and then Lori. What have you identified as the 3 most important challenges facing our community, and how do you propose to address them?
Well, I think that's a great question, Lila. Thank you. I think first and foremost, the fentanyl crisis is the issue that is most plaguing our streets here in San Francisco. And we need a robust series of options here. The first is law enforcement. Drug dealers must be arrested and held accountable. And we also need to focus on the demand side of things. We haven't been focused enough on recovery resources, on ensuring that people suffering from substance use disorder are into recovery. I'm incredibly proud to have championed the opening of a transitional housing facility on Lombard and Octavia earlier last year, run by the Salvation Army. I think we need to focus on enforcement and on recovery. It has to be a combination of services and accountability. The cost of living crisis, I think, is the existential problem we're facing here. And that's about housing. It's lack of affordability. It's lack of housing at all levels. I'm very proud to have championed the expansion to the opportunity to build new housing last year with the Mayor's Family Zoning Plan, but also on specific projects that we are moving forward. It's about new housing in Presidio Heights. It's about veterans housing on Van Ness. It's about affordable housing at the Normandy Apartments. It's about teacher housing at 750 Golden Gate and 850 Turk. It's about creating more options, and going forward, it's about lowering the cost of construction so that you can actually afford the rent that developers need. So those are the 2 biggest ones. But the one we don't talk about enough is Muni. Muni is facing a massive deficit. We need to make sure it's there. We need transportation for our families, for our children. And so when I look at the 3 challenges right now, the fentanyl crisis, housing affordability, and our transportation system, those are the 3 we need to attack head on.
Thank you.
So I would say, in walking door to door and all the work I've done over the years, that the good news is a lot of people are very happy in San Francisco to a large extent. I'll say, what are some of the big issues? And they're like, this is an amazing city, and I'm so happy to live here. Then you scratch the surface a little further, and things will start to pop up, like quality of life issues. I mean, there certainly are the big existential issues, such as the fentanyl crisis. But when you start to talk to people day to day, like what do they think about when they wake up and then when they go to bed, it is parking, traffic, zoning, clean streets, the graffiti that makes the, looks like your neighborhood is open for business. It's the vacancies on the commercial corridors. It's all the things that we have to deal with from when we wake up to when we go to sleep. But if you do want to pull back to 30,000 feet and deal with bigger issues such as affordability, now that could be on all categories, whether it's the food or the cost of transportation, the cost of childcare, but of course housing is something that I've been very deeply involved in, and the need for more affordable housing in this city. Now that's not going to happen overnight. We always have been, and to one degree we will probably always be, a very expensive city. But we can work hard to change that. But we need to do it in ways that are actually effective and achievable. So I believe we can build the housing that we need without destroying the neighborhoods that we love. I mean, I think of my neighborhood as a village. That's why I love living in San Francisco. And I think of all of our neighborhoods as an archipelago of villages. And everyone's unique and everything is different. And that's why people come to visit San Francisco. So top priorities are quality of life, affordability, and our vibrant commercial corridors. Of course, there will always be the bigger existential ones, and those are going to take a long time and a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice to actually make an impact on. But what I can do as a supervisor day to day is continue to do what I do even not as a supervisor, which is constituent services, and help those so when you wake up in the morning and you go to bed at night, you have a smile on your face. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, Lori, then Stephen. What is your position regarding San Francisco's sanctuary ordinance, which restricts the use of local resources by federal agents?
I support a sanctuary city. I think it's important that immigrants can feel safe, and talking about any crime that might be in their neighborhood, going to work, going to school, doing their jobs, and not feel the threat of somebody coming and deporting them. I think that's a really important part about the value of San Francisco, and I don't think that should change. Our current laws, of course, if somebody breaks the law, they go to jail. Those all are still in place. We just don't deport the people. And I think it's really important that people feel safe and protected, and you don't have to worry about your kid when they go to school, and the kid doesn't have to worry about their parent when they go to work. That is such an unfair burden to put on any family. And I applaud San Francisco for taking the position of sanctuary cities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Lila, thank you for this question. You know, I'm looking up there, and there's a sign up there that says Sanctuario. And the sanctuary city movement, in many ways, was driven by the religious community here in San Francisco. And it's an incredibly important part of the fabric of the city, of the values of the city. And for me, being able to vote last year to reaffirm our status as a sanctuary city was a very proud moment. But I think we need to go beyond just saying we are a sanctuary city, because it is good on a moral level, and it's good on a safety level. It's a good thing for kids to be in school. It's a good thing for people to be able to access health care without fear. Those things are good, but we have to go beyond just that and say, what does it take to be a sanctuary city in effect, not just in name? And that means focusing on legal defense for immigrants, which I'm very proud to have voted for last year and will do so again this year. But it's also about ensuring that the police department is getting trained constantly. And this is not just one training, because we saw what happened at SFO a couple months ago, when maybe the police department didn't quite know what they were supposed to do. Maybe they didn't quite know how to handle the situation. And so we have to constantly reassess, are we handling this the right way? Are we standing up for our immigrant communities the right way? Are we empowering our police officers with the tools that they need to really handle this the right way? Because our police officers, I think, stand up for our sanctuary city ordinance as much as anybody. And so for me, sanctuary city ordinance is incredibly important. It's important for our values, it's important for our residents, it's important for safety for all of us, and I think we need to do more to continue to train our officers to act as I know they want to do.
Thank you. For the next question, we'll go Stephen, then Lori. Supervisors Bilal Mahmoud and Cheyenne Chen are introducing a new city law that would require police officers to identify and document with their body-worn cameras the credentials of plain-clothed ICE and federal agents who are not readily identifiable but acting in San Francisco. Do you support or oppose this proposed law? Support or oppose this proposed law?
Yeah, Lila, I mean, look, I think this gets back to what we just spoke about. How do we empower our police officers to keep San Franciscans safe? And I think what is so dangerous about the Trump administration's approach with ICE is they are essentially making it possible that anyone who throws on a mask and waves around a gun, are you a federal law enforcement official or are you just a terrorist? And that line is very blurry right now, and that's dangerous. And so I am really proud of the fact that two of my colleagues have stood up and tried to provide clarity to the police department. Now, it's going to take work, right? This is not just about legislation. This is about rulemaking. This is about working with the department on training. But at the end of the day, San Franciscans need to feel safe, and that people aren't running around willy-nilly ripping our friends, our family off the streets. And I think this is a great example of two thoughtful supervisors trying to provide tools and direction to law enforcement here in San Francisco on how to protect San Franciscans. I guess short answer, yes, I'm excited to work through the details with them, but yes, I'm supportive of their effort.
Thank you.
Yes, I would be supportive of that effort, and I'm actually really pleased to see those two working together, because as you know, the more and more you see various supervisors that don't always align politically, finding things in common is really heartening, I think, as us as citizens, because we want them to get things done, not pick, battle lines. So that's really good, and I'm glad to hear that. I do think that the mask is a huge issue. It's just unbelievable to look online and see these folks being able to wear masks as if they have some additional protection for the things that they do. No, if you're going to sign up for that job, then people need to know who you are behind it. And if you're afraid to show your face, then you shouldn't be doing it. And I think that, so I do applaud the supervisors that stepped up, and thank you for joining in. And should I be the supervisor, I would have too.
Thank you. This is a multi-part question, and Lori, you'll take this first. What would you do to promote access to affordable housing, shelters, and behavioral health treatment for those who need it, for people who are unhoused? How would you address neighborhood concerns about the locations where such services are offered? Do you commit to funding and hosting such services in your district?
So that question is somewhat in my wheelhouse, in that one of the things I did after while Cal Hollow president is formed Rescue SF. And that is a coalition of about 55 neighborhood associations across San Francisco. And the purpose of which is that residents had come to the Cal Hollow Association and said, what can we do to help with the homeless crisis? How can our voice be heard? So we united those neighborhood leaders across the city, and we did a deep dive into the homeless ecosystem, talking with department heads, the homeless themselves, the service providers, and we formulated ideas. And we would meet monthly with the mayor's office, Sean Ellsberg, Breed's chief of staff, and we would put forth those ideas. Some of them were listened to, some of them were not. But one of the ideas was about interim housing. And I think the Wells Center, which is on Lombard Street that opened up recently, is a perfect example where you have one extreme, shelters, and then you have the other extreme, which is permanent supportive housing. But the big missing middle is the interim shelter, the place you go when you get off the street, and you can be there for a month to 2 months to 3 months. You have independent living, well, you have your own room, so you have the dignity and the privacy you need to start to recover your life. And then you have the wraparound services there in the building. And then you move on to what makes sense. Back to your home, if you have family elsewhere, maybe that's on to permanent supportive housing, maybe it's on to independence. And so I think that we have two things in District 2. We have the Well Center that just opened, which is for sober living, for people who have gotten through recovery to go to that next stage, to stabilize, and then to move on to independence. We also have Edward II, which is transitional age youth housing, which we're very involved with. The Cal Hollow Association participates, and that is youth 18 to 24 who are coming out of foster care. And it's to give them that stability to get their lives together so they don't end up on the streets. And we work closely with that community to make sure that they're cared for. And for instance, we bring food to their freezer at the end of every month when they're typically running out of money. So I support housing that's affordable, housing that's safe for the homeless community and beyond.
Thank you.
I appreciate this question around behavioral health services. Substance use disorder is something that is crippling our city in many ways right now. And until we attack substance use disorder aggressively and head on, and that means providing recovery resources, treatment, beds, until we do that, we are going to continue to fail to combat the fentanyl crisis. When it comes to siting facilities in District 2, I was at the lead of making sure that the Wells Place opened safely, opened quickly, opened effectively. And the way that we need to do this across the city is not the way that it's been done in the past. In the past, the city has opened new facilities without focusing on the neighborhood around it. And if we're going to address this crisis, we're going to need to open more facilities. And that means getting more neighborhoods on board. And that means building trust with residents. And so the approach that we took was saying, we're going to hold the city accountable for what happens inside the walls, but we're also going to make sure we hold them accountable for what happens outside the walls. And so the approach we took, we set up a community council where we met bi-weekly with any resident who wanted to come. We helped do some sidewalk paving on the other side of Lombard, helped get some trees on the other side of Lombard. We added a foot patrol on Chestnut and Ambassadors to address community safety concerns that had absolutely nothing to do with the facility itself, and in fact had something to do with a toddler overdosing on fentanyl 2 years previously. But all of these things were in service of building trust with residents to say, this facility is going to open in your district, this facility is going to open on your block, but we're not leaving you out to dry. The best thing that I heard 2 months ago, I knocked on a woman's door and she said, you're going to ruin the neighborhood with this facility. And I said, well, it opened 2 months ago. And she said, oh, I didn't notice. Never mind, thanks. and slammed the door in my face. And I said, okay, great. But this is about building trust with residents to expand our ability to address this crisis.
Thank you. Next question. San Francisco has taken steps to make it difficult, if not impossible, for people to live in recreational vehicles within city limits. Recent data shows that 40% of people offered housing after agreeing to leave their RVs had to move outside of San Francisco. What's your plan to limit this form of displacement of people who have social ties, children in local schools, connections to social services, and jobs in San Francisco? So, Stephen, you're first this time.
Look, homelessness, is driven by a lack of housing options at affordable levels. This is a mathematical equation. And one of the reasons that these 40% of the individuals who were offered housing to leave their RVs had to move outside of San Francisco was because there wasn't enough adequate housing in San Francisco. We need to build more housing in San Francisco. We need to build more housing at all income levels. And when it comes to the individuals who are living in RVs, I think that's a great example. How do we keep people here who have built community here, whose kids are in the schools here? This applies to the individuals who are living in RVs. This applies to the individuals in the Presidio who are seeing record rent hikes. We want to keep communities together. We need to make sure that the rent is not too damn high. And when you restrict the production of housing over 30 years and don't take a reasonable crack at reinventing the way that we fund affordable housing, and we do need to radically reinvent the way that we fund affordable housing, we're going to continue to fail. Because at the end of the day, you can't afford rent right now because the rent that developers need to justify building new housing is just crazily out of control. So we do need to lower the cost of construction. We do need to rethink how we fund affordable housing going forward, because yes, it is the individuals who are in the RVs who can't find housing here in San Francisco, but it's also the family who just had their first child, pregnant with a second, looking across the bridge. It's the family who maybe they lost a job, and quite frankly, it's at all income levels. Anthropic's number one problem right now, they're having trouble finding a place for their new employees to live. And when people getting paid that much are having a problem finding a place to live, you know we got a big problem.
Thank you.
So my approach to the affordable housing situation short term is that the most affordable housing is existing housing. Now, we have about 40% vacancy rate in our city, and about, 40,000 vacant units and about 30,000 illegal units. We have 70,000 units already approved in a pipeline and shovel-ready. This is not the sexy stuff that developers want to talk about because there's not a lot of money to be made in trying to bring those units online. But those are homes that are ready to be lived in, but they're not on the market for various reasons. So let's begin with the 40,000 vacant units. I know that my block alone, my one little block in San Francisco, there's probably almost 20 units of vacant apartments for reasons that are personal to the landlords that own those buildings. But nonetheless, that's housing that people could be living in. And I think we need to find ways to incentivize private owners, small landlords, to get those units on the market, rather than hold them off for fear of the forever tenant or a tenant that does some kind of abuse, because tenants have rights, and those rights are important, and they should be kept. But if there are situations that get out of hand, I think small landlords need to have some recourse or need to have somebody help them get through those moments. A very specific example of the RVs is they tend to congregate around Lake Merced. There's a bunch of them out there. And ironically, Park Merced, across the street, has 20% vacancy. There's 3,500 units in Park Merced. So there's 700 vacant units, roughly, in Park Merced right now. Is anyone talking to the owners of the Park Merced facility from the city? Are we getting creative? That is existing housing. It's family housing. They're two-story garden apartments. It's perfect. It's on transit line. That is the kind of creative thinking we need to do to get affordable housing online tomorrow.
Thank you. What are your views on the new family upzoning plans for District 2? And specifically, what do you think of the proposal to replace the Marina Safeway with a mixed-use development that would include nearly 800 units of housing and 2 high-rise towers? Lori, you're first this time.
Can I have 5 minutes? Okay, so for those of you who do know me, I was co-founder of Neighborhoods United SF, and we were an organization similar to Rescue SF that was a coalition of neighborhood leaders, affordable housing developers, tenants' rights advocates, small business advocates, labor. It was a cross-section, political cross-section. But we all agreed upon one thing, and that was the family zoning plan was not going to achieve its goal of delivering affordable housing. Because it's when you upzone parcels, where it can be 4 stories one day and the next day when it is approved, now you can go 8, 12, 14, whatever it may be, that land is now worth more. You have just made the probability of building affordable housing on that lot even further out of reach. So the process of upzoning a city doesn't deliver affordability. It is completely unknown where those projects are going to crop up. And in many cases, of course, will be luxury towers because that's where the money is. What we have done as a country, we have put onto the backs of for-profit developers the process of trying to build affordability. That'll never pencil out, and that's why we're in this situation. We've stopped building public housing. So we can't be surprised that we're in this situation. Regarding the Marina Safeway, so that's almost like the dog that caught the car. The family zoning plan was supposed to be the antidote to the state laws that would come in instead. But the state laws came in anyway. If you're a developer and you have a choice, am I going to follow the family zoning plan or am I going to use state laws? Where do I make more money? Where are there less regulations? Where do I not need to do environmental review? Where do I not need to have neighborhood input? Where do I not need to have proper infrastructure? That's all the state laws. So what did we see? The Marina Safeway project, which is on a toxic site, does not have proper infrastructure. It's the sewage problems out there. There's a myriad of things that are wrong with that. There was no involvement with the community to have that project in place, and I think it needs to go back to the drawing board.
Thank you.
I think we should start with acknowledging here or addressing the fact that the family zoning plan and the Marina Safeway proposal at 25 stories are 2 different things. And Lori and I agree point by point on the Marina Safeway. At 25 stories, that proposal is crazy. It is crazy. It is too big, everything that you just said. I know I'm not supposed to address my opponent, but hopefully this is a collaboration here. It's not the right thing for the city, I don't believe. And one of the reasons that it's not the right thing for the city is that we spent a full year going parcel by parcel. My office went parcel by parcel in District 2. More changes were seen in the draft maps for the family zoning plan in District 2 than the entire rest of the city combined. We spent the entire year building trust with residents to say, even if you don't like this, which many people don't, here's what you can expect over the next 50 years for zoning. And we actually addressed the zoning on the Marina Safeway and said, that's too expansive. That could supercharge a state project. Let's make that more San Francisco-centric. I wrote in 4 stories on that parcel. And the week before this became law, boom, developer slips in this proposal. That breaks the trust. Now, how are you supposed to trust the government when we take the big swings at the next problem? Trust is so important. And so for me, the family zoning plan was about expanding opportunity to build housing. It does not address the cost of construction. The cost of construction is way too high. In order to justify building a building, a developer right now has to charge a rent that is stratospheric and out of reach for so many of us. That is wrong. Park Merced's a great example. And that's why we need to leverage tax increment financing. We need to rethink the inclusionary housing requirements to lower the upfront costs. And we need to radically invest in workforce housing across all income levels.
Thank you. This next question is about a very specific neighborhood. The Upper Fillmore Revitalization Project of venture capitalist Neil Mehta has caused some controversy over the past few years by threatening certain legacy businesses with the loss of their leases. Recently, plans have been publicized for the revitalization project's restoration of the Clay Theater and the addition of a new restaurant next door. What are your views on protecting legacy businesses and neighborhood character? What does having a single corporation owning many properties along Fillmore mean for preserving the character of the neighborhood? Stephen, you're first this time.
You know, when I took office, this project was being talked about a lot. And I didn't understand everything I was reading in the newspaper because there seemed to be conflicting accounts. So I said, hey, why don't I just go talk to these people? And they said, hey, we've formed a nonprofit. We put a lot of money into it. We bought these storefronts. Here's the plan. And I said, okay, that's interesting. Why aren't you telling people about this? Why aren't you telling people that Tenichi never had a lease and they tried to extort you for money? You know, why aren't you telling people that you and Lamed have, yeah, you made some mistakes there, but you've, you know, made amends? And actually, Lamed wrote in a letter of support for the Upper Fillmore Restoration Project's work at Clay Theater. Why aren't you telling people about the really beautiful, historically appropriate restoration you're doing of the theater? And so there are efforts, I think, to take people on tours of the theater, to show them the plans that Page and Turnbull has come up with, I think is the right move. Transparency is good. That's why tonight is good. League of Women Voters focused on transparency, on access to information. Transparency is good. And so I see my role as a District 2 supervisor in making sure that someone like this is being transparent, that they're hosting tours. And if you haven't been on a tour and you're interested, you really should go. And then it's about me stepping up and saying, hey, I'm going to make sure that this project gets done and done well, that it has a long-term financial future. That's why I passed a law allowing them to serve beer and wine and actually allowing movie theaters, our great community theaters around the city, to serve beer and wine. Because I think, to me, it's about making sure, have you spoken directly with the Presidio Heights Residents Association? Have you been working with the Fillmore Merchants Association? And now they are. And they're talking closely. So for me, it's about connecting the community with the assets here and making sure there's transparency so that we can all move forward together.
Thank you.
So when I go canvassing, particularly in the area around here, there were several homes that asked about that particular project, and they didn't know what the status was going to be. The interesting part about this is the world we're in now, where people have such fear when buildings are bought. Because there was a time where if a building got bought, it would probably be renovated, cleaned up, and reused in for some other purpose. Now what they see is somebody who's probably going to tear down the building and then build to the maximum new height. And in some parts of the city, great idea. Other parts of the city, maybe not as good of an idea. And particularly, our commercial corridors are the big reason why I love living in the city, as I mentioned earlier. It's the heartbeat of our community. It's our third place, not our home, not our work, but it's the place you go to be with others. And I think the fact that they're walkable, they're human scale, they have the architecture that has been historic to San Francisco is extremely important. You know, you don't want to kill the goose that laid the golden egg. And it's the kind of thing you won't realize you've lost until it's gone. And I think it's really important that we think about them. And I know that the upzoning plans and things that have been passed recently have triggered this fear now in people as to what is going to happen. I have people calling me saying, somebody just bought next door to me. What can they do? So the rules of engagement have been blown to pieces now. You really don't know ultimately what can be built around you. And that makes people very nervous and upset and destabilized in their investments, they may say. Legacy businesses are those that have been around for 30 years or more. When somebody comes to San Francisco, they often they don't know it's a legacy business, but those are the ones they end up going to, because that's the heart of San Francisco. That's the vibe of our city. When, the shiny bar that, if the walls could talk, those are the places people want to go, and they're worth protecting. But oftentimes they're in the line of sight of these new developments. So I think it's really important that we protect what makes San Francisco so special.
Thank you. We're going to switch to transportation. Lori, you'll take this one first. The 22 Fillmore bus is one of the oldest and most popular routes in the city, yet it is also one of the slowest. What can be done to improve its service? Do you support the 15-year muni parcel tax that is backed by transit activists and Mayor Lurie and is likely to be on the November ballot?
So initially when I was thinking about the tax and all that, my first reaction is people don't want more taxes. But you have to conflate that with the importance of Muni in our city. Any major city needs a well-functioning, reliable, safe Muni system. You can't grow without it. So I definitely believe we need to do what's right for Muni. But the tax is just one part of it. I think we have to question how we got into this problem to begin with. And I think a lot of it has to do with where the money is being spent. There's the operations of Muni, and then there's the capital projects, where they're, as you have seen, the bus rapid transit on Van Ness, and then the work they did on Vallejo Street and the work on Tarbell Street. Those are really, really, really expensive. The burrowing of the underground tunnel from downtown out to Chinatown. And it's not to deny that these aren't good ideas, but we don't have the money for them. The money should be spent on operations, the maintenance and the service and the drivers and the routes. And until we can get that right, we shouldn't be putting hundreds of thousands and or millions or billions of dollars into digging into our streets to put more subways that not only take forever, extremely expensive, but are very disruptive to the commercial businesses that are along those routes. So I think we focus on the parcel taxes. If it passes, it passes. But let's do more than that. Let's really analyze what capital projects that are underway, and instead let's focus the funding on making us the best Muni system we have.
Thank you.
San Francisco desperately needs a functioning, robust Muni to be a fantastic city. Whether you are a student getting to school, whether you're working downtown, downtown cannot be successful without a functioning Muni. Seniors getting to the pharmacies cannot be successful without a functioning Muni. Drivers can't be successful without a functioning Muni, because every person on the 1X is one less person you're competing with for a parking spot or in that lane of traffic. We need not only this parcel tax to pass, and it is a good, progressively designed parcel tax, we also need the regional sales tax to pass. I am very proud to have signed my name on the ballot, my name on the ballot measure signature sheets, for these measures. It's incredibly, incredibly important. When it comes to these measures, what I like about them is they fund operations. And I think it's important for us to build trust with residents, as I talked about before. We are in a deficit because the federal government cut $238 million of funding because we have increased the number of people who are eligible for free Muni, kids, low-income seniors, low-income adults. And the cost of service is rising as well. Now, we can talk about capital projects, but those come from different funding streams. Speed bumps, pedestrian safety, those come from different funding streams. We desperately need to build trust in the fact that Muni has cut $150 million in administrative expenses over the last 2 years. They're hiring fare inspectors. And yes, I do think everybody desperately needs to swipe. We got to build that trust too. But at the end of the day, if we don't pass these measures, we're looking at 40% service cuts. We're looking at the elimination of 20 lines. And those $150 million in administrative cuts in the last 2 years, that got us the 1X back. That got us the 30X back. So how do we keep this going?
Thank you. Stephen, this one will go to you first. The price of gas has skyrocketed. How much would you prioritize making public EV charging more accessible in San Francisco, and particularly in District 2?
That is a great and topical question, because right now on Lombard Street, there is a Tesla supercharger lot that is good for charging electric vehicles, but on Friday and Saturday nights, it is a party, and I don't mean in a good way. So we talked before about the behavioral health crisis, about the fentanyl crisis, about the need to build trust among residents if we're going to expand the number of facilities that are servicing these problems in our neighborhoods. That applies to electric vehicle charging too. If we're going to meet our climate goals, we need more electric vehicles. And having them in neighborhoods is a good idea. But when the residents of Moulton Street, the residents next door on Lombard, can't sleep on a Saturday night because people are having a party in the charging lot, it takes 20 minutes to charge one of these cars. That's a problem. And so the work that we've done so far is about building trust with residents. So as we open a new one, they want to open another one on Powell Street. As we open these around the city, residents don't think, oh my God, you're going to make sure I don't sleep. Like, hooray, climate, but I'd also like to go to sleep. And I don't think that's an either or. So for me, the work has been not just about championing electric vehicle charging, which I think is a good thing in a vacuum, but it's about saying, what does it mean for residents, and how do we build the support for everyone? So that was about blocking off the entrance on Moulton so that we didn't have people speeding down Moulton Street. And it's about potentially introducing legislation to require staffing when these facilities are open at night. And we're drafting that right now. Because if we don't build trust with residents on the day-to-day issues, we will not be able to address our big climate issues, our big affordability issues, our fentanyl crisis. And so for me, it's not as simple as saying, do I support electric vehicle charging? Sure. It's about saying what's happening in the city now and how do we build that support. And that's about tackling this supercharger lot between Lombard and Moulton right now head on.
Thank you.
Well, I happen to know about that too because residents have, for years now, they'll call the Cow Hollow Association, you know, when there's issues such as the charging site on Lombard Street. And I know that, Stephen, you were working on it, which was good. And I went by the other day, and they have new signs out that say, you know, silent charging area. Don't know how well people are listening to that. But it was a new problem that we didn't have 3 years ago, right? This is how things develop, and you realize you've got to take it on and get creative. I want to tie into something in the last topic about the transportation. And one thing we didn't discuss is like the Waymo vehicles and how we're going to fund transit. You know, I think that obviously a lot of people love Waymo. I mean, it's a great option, along with Uber and Lyft and all of that. But these companies are using our streets for their profit and their businesses, and it does impact those of us that live here, and it does impact Muni. So maybe we should also consider how they can participate in the funding of public transit when they are using our public streets. I wanted to bring that up. But back to the EV, well, it's tied together. I don't know if any of you have been, you know, when you drive around the city, it's kind of tricky driving behind a Waymo because they don't roll lights. You know, you find yourself kind of at odds with them at points because they drive it very well. But they're everywhere. And it's this balance between being leading edge technology-wise, providing services for our citizens, and also realizing at what point does it start to degrade some of the quality of life issues for those of us that are living here. And I think the EV sites, large charging stations, is a brand new problem that we need to address. And, you know, I don't know if there'll be fines ultimately, you know, for people that are causing those problems, but I think the first step is doing what you're doing, Stephen, is try to get some legislation in place to curb this. Thank you.
Thank you. The Recreation and Park Commission last week unanimously approved a plan for cleaning up Gas House Cove and adding a 5-acre park with water access for kayaks, paddleboards, and other small craft. It would add some new slips to the East Harbor, but reduce the total number of slips there by, I think, about 170, and move the fuel dock to the West Harbor. A previous proposal was scrapped when it encountered strong community opposition, raised both for environmental concerns and for obstructing views. What do you think of the new plan? Laura, you're first this time.
So the other day I met with someone who's been going to that Eastern Harbor since she was a child and teaching, and she now teaches kids how to sail. And I got a first-hand understanding of how complicated that whole area is, the whole shoreline from Fort Mason all the way down to the Presidio. I mean, it's a beautiful shoreline. It's a historic shoreline, but there's a lot more going on there than just beauty. Because the Eastern Harbor that you're talking about is, you know, the city sued PG&E to clean up the toxic soil that's there. And that is tied to the Safeway site, because that soil started even further back. So there's toxicity around that whole area. And they now have determined they were going to remediate just a pretty small circle within that whole large area. Because I guess it's just too expensive to do the whole thing. So the concept of making that water usable for anyone to actually get in is still not an option. But possibly to still sail in that area would be. So I think they want to put more slips in. And then 2 more things about the Eastern Harbor. One is the actual fueling station. So right now that's the only fueling station on San Francisco shoreline for boats that need to get anywhere within the bay from the San Francisco. And there's really no clear understanding right now, or promise that it will go somewhere else. But meanwhile, does it need to go somewhere else? Because it's been very effective in that location. And the third complicating factor in this tight little area is the outfall. And this is when the water after rain comes pouring down the side of the city, down the hillside, and it drains into our bay. And when you have 30-year or 50, 70-year storms, it overflows. And there was one of the outfalls in the middle of the Marina Boulevard that was closed. And I don't know if you remember hearing about this, there was just sewage up and down the whole Marina Boulevard. And so there has not been a good plan in place to fix that problem should it happen again. So if you go to the fueling station and the West Harbor, you'll see that, and behind it you'll see water pouring out, and that's the Laguna outfall. So all of this stuff needs to be coordinated and thought through, and there's really no effort to do that at this time, and I would lead that.
Thank you.
So the remediation of Gashouse Cove is really challenging. First and foremost, because it's really polluted, and we got to deal with the pollution. That's the basic answer. That's a basic question, excuse me. How do we deal with the pollution? Now, we sued PG&E. We got about $190 million to deal with this. That sounds like a lot, but when you're remediating underwater pollution and trying to rebuild boat slips you've taken away, that's a hard thing to do. So the plan right now is a compromise. It's a compromise in a lot of different ways, and it's an imperfect one. The thing that bothers me the most is that a lot of the kids who've grown up having boating access to Gashouse Cove, won't have access to it in the future. Now, if we had an extra $50 million, we could do a different remediation and fix that. We don't, and that really stinks, is the basic part of it. And so when I sat down in office 16 months ago, got briefed on this project, people came to me and they said, what about the fuel dock? That is the only fuel dock for the Coast Guard, for the police department, for the fire department. This is about public safety. What about the fuel dock? And I said, I don't know, that's a great question. So I had Dean Crispin and the chief of the fire department and the chief of operations, Pat Rabbit, in the office. I said, what about the fuel dock? They said, we didn't know it was moving. Jason Sawyer from the police department. I said, what about the fuel dock? He said, I didn't know it was moving. So I said, the parks department, have you talked to them? He said, we haven't really talked to them yet. As a supervisor, my job is to see these issues and say, Parks Department, Fire Department, Police Department, what are you going to do? And right now, they're working on the Hyde Street Pier, which is undergoing its own remediation, and the fuel docks will be moved to the Hyde Street Pier, funded in conjunction by the Fire Department and the Police Department. This is not about hoping for the best. This is about connecting departments to have a real solution for the future. And this is a tough issue. There is not a perfect answer, but we need to remediate the harbor, and we need to focus on safety.
Thank you. I've got another waterfront question. The municipal pier at Aquatic Park, which had been deteriorating for years, was closed in 2022 due to safety concerns. The National Park Service is responsible for maintaining the pier, but no federal funds have been allocated to repair it. Would you advocate for getting the pier repairs funded, and if so, how? Stephen, it's your turn this time.
That's a great question. I think Aquatic Park is one of the most underutilized resources we have in this city. You know, a 25, 50-year future would have water taxis at Fort Mason. It would have a network of terminals around the coast down to India Basin. We're not there yet. I think, as we all know, the Trump administration is not exactly coming flying in with $500 million to help us reinvigorate all these options. With municipal pier, yes, I think it's incredibly, incredibly important. But at the end of the day, the best way to advocate for this, I think, is by managing the streets of San Francisco better. And you would say that doesn't really make sense to me. And what I would say is we are not going to be successful getting money for municipal pier until we have a Democrat in the White House. Full stop. And I believe that Donald Trump is president of the United States right now because San Francisco didn't govern itself better. We didn't attack the fentanyl crisis better. We didn't attack the cost of living crisis better. If we can prove that we can govern San Francisco effectively, if we can prove that people with our values love who you want to love, control your own body, sanctuary city ordinance, if we can prove that those things go hand in hand with clean and safe streets, with accessible housing, accessible transit, accessible daycare, great public schools, we will prove to the entire country that we are not only a beacon of freedom for the world, frankly, but also a place where effective governance happens. And so, quite frankly, I believe that we need to govern ourselves better and prove that that's how we are going to get a Democratic president in the White House, and that's going to be the best step forward to getting the funding we need for the municipal pier.
Thank you.
I wish it were that easy. Politics are pretty intense in our country, and I don't know, we've seen what Trump did recently with the Presidio situation. I don't think there's any money coming our way, period, and less over time. In regards to the municipal pier and the aquatic park, of course we would want to rebuild and reestablish parts of our shoreline that have been used for generations. But if we don't have the money for it, then we do need to, I think it's currently quadrant off because it is dangerous, but don't in any way take it down. And so when the funding does come back, should we have a more favorable government that we're in a position to do it? There's also a lot of money floating around in our city right now. There's a lot of billionaires, multiple billionaires, and they love the city and they seem willing to help. They pay for drones, they do a lot of things. Maybe these can be some projects, public-private projects they could get involved with. We'll name it after them if it's that important. But we have people who love the city, who have the money, more money than they could spend in 4,000 lifetimes, that may want to do some good in that way. And why don't we reach out and see if they want, because that happens around the country, that happens around the world. When the government can't do it, private citizens step forward and they help. So that's one way I think we should consider.
Thank you. The Trump administration recently fired all of the Presidio Trust Board members and has called for the trust to be, quote, eliminated to the maximum extent consistent with applicable law, stating that it is a waste of funds and unnecessary. We know this is untrue and that the Presidio Trust has been self-sustaining for many years. It is unclear what the administration plans to do next. What role could the District 2 Supervisor play in protecting the Presidio and the people who live, recreate, and operate businesses there? Lori, it's your turn first this time.
So the Cow Hollow Association is adjacent to the Presidio. So we've always been very involved with the activities that go on there. There's an organization that's changed names, but it used to be called NAP, Neighborhood Associations for Presidio Planning. And all the association leaders that touched the Presidio would participate. And the relationship with the Presidio was overall always very good. I mean, I've been on the Cow Hollow board for a long time, and I remember when the Presidio Trust Act was put into place by Nancy Pelosi. Thank God. And we owe her a debt of gratitude for shepherding that military base into what is now a national park. And I do have, with my involvement with Cow Hollow Association, there was a point where they were going to demolish the bowling alley in the main ground, and they wanted to put a modern art museum in its place. And we stepped up as the association and pushed back, and eventually they chose to put the modern art downtown and keep the bowling alley for the public use. There was also a situation with the development of the Letterman, well, it was a Letterman layer, and then it went to the Lucas Center. They wanted to build really, really tall buildings. We pushed back. They ended up realizing that 4-story buildings at the entrance to the park made a lot more sense. So we've been very, very involved as an association with the Presidio. And for the most part, they have been great stewards of that land. I will say I am a bit concerned as to who will take Nancy's seat. Because right now we have the Presidio Trust Act. That is the document that protects the integrity of that beautiful park. Should the person in that seat not feel the same, then we may have a weakening of the Trust Act to the point where we see changes in the park that we never envisioned would happen. So I think the Presidio, we should never take it for granted. We need to stay on top of it because there's people that are always nibbling around the edges that want a little piece of it. And I will be that person for sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last year, when President Trump started to make noise around the Presidio, he said he was basically going to destroy it, eviscerate it to the extent possible by law, and nothing happened. And I think that's a function of the law. Speaker Pelosi does deserve all of our gratitude for writing an incredibly strong law in 1995 that formed the trust. It is a profitable entity. That doesn't mean that new board members couldn't decide to change things. You know, right now they're going to demolish an unused, abandoned former medical building, brutalist, pretty darn ugly building, and build about 170 apartments. It's going to be beautiful, really nice, 2, 3, 4 stories, a little tiered. It's going to be really nice, right by tunnel tops. That's a good idea. That's going to help them fund infrastructure improvements, run the operations. But then we look at the residents right now who are facing 6, 7, 10% rent hikes right now, like Emily and Lindsay, whom I met with yesterday. So what we're doing on the ground level right now is we're organizing tenants. We're organizing tenants across the Presidio to stand up in the quarterly meeting in May, to stand up and make their voices heard. For a long time, Presidio residents have had great stewards on the board, and we don't know what's going to happen going forward. So the first step is about organizing residents, is about supporting them to get together and make their voices heard. And as we go forward, as we see who might the new appointees be, we need to, as a city, hold them accountable for the preservation of natural resources, for the great resources that our families all enjoy. I'm sure many of you go down there to tunnel tops with your kids just like I do. Come home a lot sandy and a lot wet, but that's okay, it's fun. We want to see the mess hall open up next year. But right now it's about standing up for the tenants, helping them organize. We're going to see an influx of tenants at that May quarterly meeting like never before. And then going forward, it's about holding those new appointees accountable, because there will be new appointees.
Thank you. Do you support or oppose either of the competing San Francisco business tax measures, Propositions C and D, which will be on the June ballot? How about the proposed California billionaires tax that may be on the November ballot? Stephen, you're first this time.
I don't like either of the local measures. I don't think either of them should be on the ballot. There's a small business tax cut measure that's intended essentially as a poison pill. I don't really want that on the ballot. But the overpaid CEO tax, I also don't want on the ballot. We definitely have a major budget crisis coming up right now. But when I talk to the grocery stores and the pharmacies in my district, like the CVS at 701 Van Ness, they almost closed 2 months ago. And we spoke to them. We worked with them on some safety things. They decided to remain open. If Prop D, the overpaid CEO tax, passes, they will close. There are grocery stores who may close. Downtown will not be able to recover. And yes, we have a budget deficit today, but if downtown doesn't come back, I've got commercial real estate brokers calling me saying, is this going to pass? I've got clients who either are going to sign or aren't. They're waiting to see if this passes. If downtown doesn't come back, our budget deficit today is going to look like child's play. And so we have to get away from this whiplash back and forth. Don't forget, 2024, we passed Prop M to make this all rational and reasonable. If we keep whiplashing back and forth, we are destined to continue to come back to deficits upon deficits upon deficits. I don't want either of those on the ballot. The proposed California wealth tax, I think we should definitely tax billionaires more, no question. I just don't think that's the right mechanism. Wealth taxes are not the right mechanism because they're very, very hard to administer. There's an easy way for billionaires to avoid it, which is to move. Personally, I think it's crazy that the Democratic Party at the national level has not proposed taxing the buy, borrow, die debt strategy. This is where billionaires don't sell their shares, don't pay any taxes, and just take out loans and pay $0 in taxes. Why we're not taxing that, to me, is crazy. That is a much better and easier way to administrate a tax on billionaires other than the wealth tax. So I'd much prefer this other option, which I think is a much better way forward.
Thank you.
I would agree. I do not support Prop C or Prop D, but I do appreciate the spirit of Prop D when it was put out by the ACLU union, that these corporations are not paying their fair share. And that, you know, I think there is a tone or a concern in our city that there is a lot of wealth is made in San Francisco and off San Francisco, off of our infrastructure and our city, and it doesn't always come back to our city. Those people often bank it and go. And if the city doesn't suit them anymore, they leave. And so I do see where the logic behind this began. And the need, it was to help fund and eliminate the probability of losing frontline workers. And this was a way to protect their jobs. Because there's so much that's happening. The last thing you want to do is create an environment where people are losing jobs. We do not need more unemployment in our city. And so measures like this are trying to do just that. But the problem is there's no guarantee that it's going to be used in the manner to achieve that end goal. Also, as Stephen had mentioned, I think it's not a good time to do things that are going to disrupt our efforts to bring back the downtown and bring back businesses, because it doesn't take much for them to, pick up stakes and go. So it's a delicate balance between keeping the businesses here and the tax base that they bring by keeping people employed, because they are the fabric of our city, the people that actually live here.
Thank you. Mayor Daniel Lurie and Supervisor Bilal Mahmoud are co-sponsoring the Balanced Update to Incentivize Local Development Act. They're calling it the BUILD Act, which would cut transfer taxes approximately in half from current rates when real estate is sold for $10 million or more. They say that this will jumpstart stalled development projects and provide more construction jobs, although it would also apply to the transfer of office buildings and old apartment buildings. If passed, this would negate Prop I, a tax law from 2020, which passed with 58% of the vote. Do you support or oppose the Real Estate Cutting BUILD Act? Stephen, you're first this time.
Let's talk about housing here. Last year, 40% of the money that came out of San Francisco's pockets went to housing. That is an out-of-control statistic. The reason you can't afford the rent right now, as I said before, is because the rents the developer needs to charge to justify just building a building are crazy high, out of control. When I talk to people who are building housing, the biggest impediment to building housing on their budget lines, this costs this costs that. It's a transfer tax right now that is 60 times the statewide baseline. That is like a crazy statistic, how high that is. And so for housing, the transfer tax at 6% is blocking the production of new housing. And in doing so, it's blocking the generation of this money for affordable housing. Now, I think we can quibble about should it apply to the transfer of existing apartment buildings. We could negotiate around that. But also when you look at downtown, about construction jobs, about getting buildings sold that they can get improved, that's going to increase the tax bases of those buildings, which will increase tax revenues. But the real thing around this is twofold. It's that, one, the transfer tax right now is way too high, and that's inhibiting the construction of new housing. And two, there's an argument around affordable housing funding. We have failed to effectively fund affordable housing. In 2024, we generated $9 million to fund affordable housing. Well, it costs $1.2 million to build one unit of affordable housing. So you're telling me that we built 7.4 or whatever affordable units? God, that's crazy. We need to look at tax increment financing. We need to look at new bond measures. But we also need to realize that we're never going to get to affordability if we don't lower the costs of constructing new housing, and the transfer tax is the biggest thing blocking that. So yes, I think we need to act on this one.
Thank you.
So I have heard from folks that are in the real estate business that the transfer tax is inhibiting and, a blockade to some of the transactions that they want to do. And so there is logic behind lowering that to jumpstart those transactions and what that delivers. There's also the concern, though, as what will come next. And I think that's always the second half of all these equations. Maybe because people are a little PTSD about how our city responds when, given an open door to develop, like the Marina Safeway. If there were more guardrails onto how redevelopment happens, that it happens in context to the communities it's being built in, it has a significant amount of affordable housing versus a meager amount, like right now, the family zoning plan, for instance, the affordable housing component of that does not have to be built on site. So we've deregulated our zoning in large part through the family zoning plan and allowed much taller, much denser buildings throughout our city. But the affordable housing, you can fee out. And those fees go into a pool of money to build affordable housing elsewhere. That mechanism that is never transparent, nor ever produces any level of significant affordability, which is supposedly the end game of all the stuff we're doing here. But we often see at the end of the day, it's he who profits the most that these laws often benefit the most. But back to the transfer tax, I do see how its level is very high, and it does inhibit good actors from transferring their buildings and selling their buildings. So I would definitely consider it.
Thank you. 3 ballot measures that would give the mayor and city administrator more power are in the works for the November 2026 election. These include the mayoral power measure, which would shift power away from city commissions to the mayor, the ballot access measure, which would make it more difficult for measures to qualify for the ballot, and a third that would grant more power to the city administrator, especially over city contracts. Where do you stand on these measures? And Lori, you're first this time.
Okay, so city administrator transferring power in that direction overall is a good idea. Very competent city administrator. The ballot access is a big deal. So what that says is right now, if you want to get a ballot measure on an upcoming election, you have to get 2% of the registered voters in that area that it affects. That is a Herculean lift in many cases. Now they're saying it needs to go to 8%. That's stratospheric. So what does that mean? The people that go around to collect those signatures usually are volunteers. Well, you'll never have enough to hit that threshold of 8%. So what's going to happen is you're going to have to pay for volunteers. So who has the money to do that? Large corporations and those that are very wealthy. They'll be the ones that'll be putting the ballot measures in place. It won't be the regular citizenry. Now they claim, oh, the ballot's too cluttered and too confusing. I'd rather have that than have measures that are important never making it to the ballot. Let me figure it out. But don't make it impossible for democracy to thrive and exist where the average citizen can pull people together and can get out there, knock door to door, and can get important measures on the ballot. Otherwise, it's only going to be one group of people that can tell us what options we have on our ballot measure. And then the third one was I know there's another measure about how many supervisors it takes to put a ballot measure on. Right now, it's 4. This says it should be a majority, and it should be 6 out of the 11. It's hard enough to get 6 on and a lot of things that are controversial. It's the same kind of thing. We should not make it harder for important measures to be brought to the public, and let us decide what we want to choose. Don't let those that have the power and the money be able to make all the decisions.
Thank you.
So let's actually talk about the 4 charter reform measures that are likely to be on the ballot. So at a high level, San Francisco is not delivering the services that we need at the level that we want it. And I think we need to make it easier for government to work better. So I'm going to be supportive of all 4 of the proposed measures. First, let's talk about the one you didn't mention, which is commission reform. We've got 34 inactive commissions. If the Board of Supervisors, which is working on this measure now, can't put that forward, how are we going to build trust with you that we can do anything if we can't get rid of the inactive bodies? So I think that's important to build trust with you all. Mayor hiring and firing department heads. I think that's really important. We elect a mayor. We elect them to do a job, and if we don't like that, we can just vote them out or recall them. I think it's very important for that mayor to choose their team and move forward with that. And then let's talk about procurement reform, putting more power in the city administrator. Procurement reform is the one that is going to be the least talked about and probably the most important. So I really encourage all of you to look strongly at that. Right now, it costs $25,000 to procure, to contract, to sign a $25,000 contract. That's really stupid. We need to fix that. So if you're going to pay attention to one, pay attention to that one. And finally, let's talk about ballot access. 2022. Let's go back to 2022. Affordable housing, I think, is something everyone in this room agrees on. We need more affordable housing. And in 2022, because of the rules about the thresholds of what can get on the ballot, there were 2 opposing affordable housing measures. And we got nothing. That's not democracy. That is gridlock. And so I believe strongly that all 4 of these ballot measures need to be supported so that we can end the gridlock, end the politics of the past, and move San Francisco forward effectively for you.
Thank you. That was actually our last question. So candidates, it's time to share your closing statements with District 2 voters. We'll go in reverse alphabetical order by first name. You'll each have 2 minutes for a closing statement. So Stephen, you're first for this closing statement.
Well, Lila, thank you. And I guess I'll stick on that theme, but for me, this is about moving forward. This is about saying that San Francisco is the greatest city in the world, but it can be better. You deserve better. You do not deserve the gridlock and infighting of the past. You deserve the momentum that we're seeing. Streets are slowly but surely getting cleaner, and we are not done yet. Car break-ins are down 80%, and we are not done yet. We need to fund domestic violence prevention. We need to fund victims' rights. We need a fully staffed police department, and we are not done yet. Last year, we had the first net increase in officers since 2019, and this year, applications are up again. We need to fund transit. We need to build housing. And last year, we moved forward over 1,500 new units of housing in District 2 alone, 1,200 in Presidio Heights, 75 units of teacher housing on Golden Gate, veterans housing on Van Ness, and we are not done yet. This takes thoughtfulness. This takes hard work. This takes detailed work. And when we look at what is going to make San Francisco the best city in America for families, it's about housing, it's about transit, it's about great public schools, and I encourage you all to look at the Board of Education elections coming up as well. And it's also about childcare. Because if families can't afford to start here, they're not going to be afford to grow here, and they're not going to be able to afford to stay here across generations. This is a fantastic city. We have incredible opportunity, and I'm so lucky to reap the benefits of this great city. But how do we expand that opportunity? How do we expand those benefits? How do we grasp the future that I think all of us deserve? So let's keep the momentum, keep going forward, and it's been a pleasure to be here with you all tonight. Thank you, and to the ACLU as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I started out by talking about my deep roots in our community and how I've been doing this work when nobody's looking for the last 27 years because I deeply love this city. The birds, the smells, the fog, there's so much about it that just triggers me in such a positive way. And I couldn't help myself but be a neighborhood activist. I never knew I would be, but I ended up in that role. I didn't wake up one day and say, I want to be supervisor. People had asked me to run, but I always said, no, I'm perfectly happy doing what I do from the outside. But this moment has come where we don't always feel, we being the neighbors, the residents, don't always feel that City Hall is listening. There are some good things happening now under Daniel Lurie's leadership, but there's a lot that still needs to be done. I am you. I am the resident. I have been the one sitting in those hearings for hours, hoping that they're listening. When I'm sitting on the other side, I know what it feels like, and I will be listening. I won't show up with my opinion already made, because some very important things are said by the public when they come. So some of the things I will do, I will focus on targeted affordable housing, and as I mentioned earlier, we can build the housing we need without destroying the neighborhoods we love. I will stand up to Sacramento. I will make sure that those one-size-fit-all laws that have produced projects like the Marina Safeway are fought back. One man wrote those laws. One woman can change them. I will champion our small businesses and their vitality. That is our heartbeat. That is the core of our city. It's the beauty of our city. They provide us the essentials, but they also provide a lot of fun. And I will do whatever is needed for them to open, to stay open, and to grow, and maybe be the next legacy business. I will be relentless about public safety. Me and my family's giving one of our own to be a police officer. I think it's important that you not only are safe, but that you feel safe. And I will do all the quality of life issues that I've been doing for the last 27 years. the stuff, the little things that get under your skin, but I will be there working on those because I know that's what makes a difference with living in San Francisco. But most importantly, I will represent you. I will come to serve. I see the job of a leader in politics as being a servant to their constituents. I am not a career politician. This is not a stepping stone for me. I am doing it because the moment calls and this woman wants me to stop. I'm out of time. So thank you so much for sitting through this tonight, and those of you at home, and I hope I have earned your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. So just a few final remarks. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of San Francisco, thank you both. Thank you, candidates. Thank you, voters. Thank you, Calvary Presbyterian Church and SF Gov TV and the ACLU NorCal for supporting this nonpartisan forum. To everyone here tonight, tuning in online or watching the recording, thank you so much for participating in our democracy by learning about your choices for the upcoming election. The League of Women Voters will host candidate forums for most local races for the June 2nd election, including the congressional race on April 29th and the District 4 Supervisors race on May 5th. The League is also posting candidate statements for all local races on their website and SF Gov TV's YouTube. In addition, the League of Women Voters of San Francisco is partnering with Parents for Public Schools to host an online forum for California Superintendent of Public Instruction on May 7th. Visit their website at lwvsf.org to learn more and to RSVP for all of those forums. Your vote matters. Remember to cast your vote by Election Day on June 2nd. The League recommends using one of the 37 ballot drop boxes around the city rather than the U.S. mail, or vote in person early at City Hall or at your polling place on Election Day. Encourage your friends, family, and neighbors to vote. Thank you all, and good night.